So what kind of stands out to you as the biggest problems? Obviously, we have COVID, but with the social issues around that and kind of the things that stand out in your mind, what comes to your mind for the last year, maybe 2 years?
I'd say the biggest issue that we're seeing, or one of the bigger issues that I'm really seeing that is bothering me, is what's happening with people's opinion on social media and the bipartisan support for social media regulation. I think that's a terrible idea. I think it's a really weird concept in that I'm seeing a lot of my right-leaning friends who are saying that the government needs to come in and regulate social media. I'm like, what? It's like, that is an anti-conservative perspective. How do you arrive at that just because they banned, President Trump and some other QAnon people and stuff like that? Like, sure, you don't like who they banned. I understand that. But your answer to them banning people you don't like, that you're not happy they banned, is government regulation. That is the complete antithesis of what you believe, or you're supposed to believe anyways, fundamentally, for what you're talking about. You want the government to come in and regulate a private business because you don't like what they're doing with their own platform. Because that's the thing. I think we have this weird contorted view of what freedom of speech is and all these different types of things. There is no freedom of speech or freedom of expression on private land, private property, or private platforms, which all of them are Facebook, social media platforms are. They're private. If you don't like them, you leave at any time you want to. That's your right as an American. That's your right as a user of those platforms. And then you have other ones that come and serve your niches, which is Parler. There used to be like 4chan and 8chan and like just all these platforms that don't believe in moderation as much. And so now I'm seeing a lot of people who are saying, no, we need the government regulation. Like, so you're telling me you want Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Mitch McConnell. Sorry, I'm blanking on all the specific people's names now. You're telling me you want these people to come in and tell you what you can and can't say on the platforms? And like, oh, no, it'll be free because they're not allowed to do that. I'm like, do you not realize the FTC exists? The FTC literally regulates free speech. They already have an entity that does this. And so you're inviting them into a new medium. They're doing it on television. They've been doing it on television and radio for the majority of life. The internet's the next frontier. And you're with welcome, open arms, inviting them into that because they banned somebody that you want to see. They didn't ban them from the internet. They banned them from a specific private entity's platform. Anyway, so again, going off on a long rant about this, but that's one of the things that I've been the most shocked at over the past couple of years. A worldwide pandemic, yeah, that can happen. You know what I mean? Racial tensions, it's America. What are you talking about? We've been in racial tensions for hundreds of years. You know what I mean? So I just think that was the biggest thing for me that I'm really seeing that is really new, is that we're seeing people on both sides of the aisle, bipartisan support in the government and people who at home are registered Democrats or conservatives who are asking for government regulation into private platforms.
So I'm really torn on this issue because like I claim to be mostly associated with like a libertarian ideology, but at the same, for one, I absolutely do not want government intervention in almost anything, because no matter what it is, no matter how small it is, that's step one. 5 years later, you get maybe step two, 5 years later, step three, and there is no drawing back. It's like trying to tell, people that are going into artificial intelligence or people that are investigating artificial intelligence and working that one day they're going to hit a point and then they say, oh, this next step is too dangerous, we're just going to pull back. No, they're going to keep going. They're always looking for the next step. So I fully agree with that. But then on the other hand, I'm a little bit torn when you have social media that is such a humongous part of our society, kind of like I'm sure you've heard this argument of it's become the town square. And so when I connect that to, let's say, just the telephone companies, let's say a telephone company says, I don't want any liberal speaking using our telephones, or I don't want any conservatives speaking using our telephones. And then they were to cut off anybody that disagrees with their perspective, it kind of opens my eyes a little bit to like the damage that can cause. And I don't know what the solution is, because I don't want government intervention, but at the same time, a part of me wants something that tells people, once you get to a certain size and a magnitude that society relies on, you can no longer, unless they're violating the laws within our country, like strict laws, not just the ones that you don't like or the ideas that you don't like, you cannot kick people off. But that's government intervention, and it goes against almost everything I believe in. What do you think about that?
Well, I think what you're talking about there is one of the things that I always go to where people that's a and I'm not saying you with what you've said there. I'm saying that the way that that thought comes together, it's an
Mhm.
anti-capitalism stance.
Mhm.
Because what you're saying is that if you're successful, if you build something big enough, you become so foundational to our society that you're no longer allowed to control what you've built. Because
Mhm.
Facebook built this. Mark Zuckerberg, all these investors, and everybody, they built what they have. If you don't like Facebook or what they're doing anymore, leave it. You can do that at any time. That's why I'm saying like it's this mentality or what's the word I'm looking for? I apologize. It's like you feel like you have a right to Facebook. You don't.
Mhm.
It's a private platform. And again, I'm using the royal you, not you.
No,
I just
I
want to make sure
totally
that it's
understand.
clear
Don't
to
worry,
everybody who's listening
I'm
that
not
I'm not
gonna get
attacking
triggered.
you. But
Can't believe you were over.
exactly, yeah, right. But no, so like, and I think that's really what that comes down to because people use that same thing. Well, it's too big. So you're saying it's too big to fail. You're saying it's the AIG. You're saying it's the JP Morgans. You're saying it's these companies, but it's not though. If you
Mhm.
left Facebook, what really changes in your life? You have to go through a little extra maybe to talk to your family. You mean like what we did 10 years ago? Facebook isn't that old.
Yeah.
We're just so spoiled and we want it, but then we want it exactly the way we want it. And that's what
Mhm.
we keep saying. Like the reason that I don't go to Parlor is because I don't think that that's the place for me. So why
Mhm.
is Facebook any different for anybody else? Just because you want it doesn't mean you're owed it. If you want it and it's not being what you want anymore, then you don't actually want it. Leave
Mhm.
it. Go find your place that is for you. Go find the thing that is for you. And if you're saying, well, my friends and family aren't there, then what you're saying is you need to abide by the rules to talk to your friends and family in this platform or reach out to them directly. You have a cell phone. Like to your point, like you did the example you just gave, the phone company's not cutting you off. Say whatever the hell you want directly to somebody. Why do you need to say it on a Facebook page? I just don't get that mentality. That's the thing that I
Yeah.
like said that I have a problem with. If we're talking about something that I can't avoid, like if I lived in a neighborhood where all I had was Comcast and Comcast was telling me I can't do X. Now, okay, yeah, I need government intervention in that because I have no other options. I can't do anything. But if this
Mhm.
isn't that example. And so now again, they're inviting the government in. And to your point, and it's exactly how I feel too. They're not going to leave. They're not going
Yeah.
to come in and do exactly what you want to do and then leave. They're going to come in, piss everyone off, and then they're going to stay there forever. Now social media is essentially just dead. It doesn't do what it's meant to anymore. And now you gave them a legal precedent for regulation into other internet chat rooms or forums or whatever else you're talking about.
Mhm.
Why? Because again, they banned a former president and they banned some conspiracy theorists and things like that or whatever. Or if you're a believer in QAnon, you don't consider yourself a conspiracy theorist, whatever you consider yourself, right?
Yeah.
So just go to a different platform.
Yeah.
How did MySpace die? We left.
Mhm.
We all left. We didn't talk about it. We didn't come together and go like, you know what? I don't like this more. We just left. We found something else we liked and we left.
You know what?
Vine did the same thing. We've killed platforms before. Kill
Uh-huh.
Facebook, kill Twitter, kill Instagram, whichever one it is that is upsetting you, kill it. You know how you kill it? By leaving. Stop talking about it. Stop commenting. That is literally how they make their money. It's all ad revenue. They don't sell almost any products. If you
Mhm.
don't go, they make $0 and they will die.
But it's so addicting.
But that's the thing. That's my point. You want the Percocet. You
Yeah,
just
yeah.
don't want it to hurt
Exactly.
you. You know what
No,
I mean?
that's the thing with MySpace. Actually, it's kind of weird because I don't know what point was the last day I went on MySpace, but I remember just randomly I was sitting there like, oh,
Mhm.
I completely forgot that I ever used to use MySpace. And I went to log into my account and I'm like, I can't find it. I can't find it. I'm looking everywhere. It just didn't exist anymore. It was really weird. But I guess one day I just didn't log in and I forgot it existed.
Yeah. And
So
what happened, I imagine for you, like it did for me, like it did for almost everybody else who's not still on MySpace. By the way, MySpace still exists. It's not dead. It's still around. It's just nobody like uses it. It's like a music platform or something now. It's really
I
weird. But
couldn't find like any way to like log into anything that I had before. And I was seeing a bunch of stuff I didn't recognize. I just gave up and went away.
the last time that I logged into MySpace, because I do this every couple of years, I feel like I think it was 2019. I want to say it was 2019 was the last year that I went on there because I'm like every couple of years I went like, oh man, how stupid was I when I was using MySpace? Maybe I need to go scrub that. Maybe I need to go see what I was saying on there and catch myself because I was early 20s, whatever. Like I couldn't have been that smart. So I probably was
Mhm.
saying a bunch of dumb stuff. And I don't need that coming back to bite me if I ever hit the lotto or something, right? So I go in there and log in every once in a while to see what I can see. But yeah, but anyways, the point that I was getting to is that you left MySpace because your friends weren't there anymore. The
Mhm.
platform wasn't interesting. You went to somewhere else. And like that's my opinion of how you do that. That's the capitalist way to kill businesses. Stop going. And
Yeah.
let me just drop one other tangent I have on here that I always get on my
Uh-huh.
soapbox about because I think people don't understand how the internet works. If you don't like a post, either on Instagram or on Yahoo or anything, do not comment, do not like it, completely avoid it. You probably won't see it anymore. But when you interact with it, That tells the algorithm that you either like this content or you at least interact with that content. So it gives you more of it. So on Yahoo, I see this all the time. By the way, the Yahoo comment section is a cesspool. It's an absolute cesspool. But anyways, people go on there like, I hate these articles. Why do you write these articles? Because you keep commenting. You keep giving their feedback loop the feedback that you like this content or that you at least interact with this content. If you don't like it, don't interact with it. That's the way you kill it. You stop interacting with it. It'll go away.
Yeah. I mean, from my understanding, the algorithms, it's like, it's not trying to cause dissent, but from what I understand statistically, people tend to comment and interact with things that make them more angry.
Yep.
And so that's what you see more. It's like, I hate this. And then I comment about it. And then you get more of it because you're commenting on it. It's like this vicious circle that never ends unless you cut it off. So.
Well, and that's the thing I always try to point out is like Mark Zuckerberg is neither some super liberal dude who hates all conservatives, nor is he some cold-hearted capitalist who just wants to make all your money, doesn't care who he hurts. He's a businessman who wants to make money. What makes money, he's found from the algorithm and every other social media platform, is people want to see certain things. Well, how do we know what they want to see? Well, they interact with it by commenting or liking. So all they're doing is trying to do what you're telling them that you like, that you enjoy, that you're interacting with. They're trying to make money. If you think about Facebook instead of political terms, whether it's either evil, liberal, quashing down the conservatives, or that it's trying to make all this money and is letting people share misinformation because if you're a liberal or whatever, it's just a business. He wants to make money. He's going to do whatever it takes to make money. And what he has decided to do is to ban certain people. And he's also decided to ban people randomly. Like I know a bunch of people who are just small people, liberal, conservative, anything else, who just said something or posted a picture or whatever it was, and they got banned for like a month or banned for 24 hours or whatever, something like that too. So it's not just conservative people. It's not just liberal people or whatever. It's the platform. They're trying to protect themselves because he wants to make money. Everybody's like, oh, well, he's got enough money. You never have enough money. That is not the way people like that think.
Of course not. So we've touched on a few different things, but based on what you're saying, I was kind of talking about public square and whatnot. And I think your point is good because I agree with literally everything that you've just said, but I have this nagging thing in the back of my head that's like, I don't like the idea of people cutting people off or any sort of censorship. But the other side of my brain is saying, this is how capitalism works, and this is people's right in their own business. Do you think there's any difference when it comes to public figures? And with that, a difference between a company claiming to be a platform versus claiming to be, when they're acting as a publisher, but they're claiming to be a platform? Because I think that's where my confliction comes in, because all these companies are saying we're a platform, but then they're acting like a publisher saying this isn't okay and that's not okay. And there's several cases where they've just completely cut off media that has factual information because they say it violates their terms, but you can find numerous other situations where things have violated their terms that they're okay with. How do you feel about that?
I have a slightly hyperbolic analogy or comparison I like to make just because I think it's funny. You have your own domicile, right? You live in a place, whatever it's apartment, house, whatever it is, doesn't really matter. By the way, I love that chalice you're drinking out of. It's pretty incredible.
Thank you. I was thinking about going on to Amazon where I got it and sending them a message and being like, hey, if I put a link on here, can I get like a little bit of like 1 cent for anyone that buys this? Like,
exactly. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
So you have your house. You're allowed to set the rules in your house. I have an apartment that I live in now. I'm allowed to set the rules in my apartment. If I took my rules to your apartment, you probably have a problem with it. You know how I know that? Because I'm allowed to be naked here. If I show up at your house naked, suddenly there's a problem. So what we're saying is, again, in essence, that you're allowed to set the rules for your platform. If I don't like your rules, then I need to go somewhere else. And so what you're talking about there with the censorship of news, that's the first step. You shouldn't be getting your... I'm allowed to swear on here? I don't know. I apologize.
Go for it.
Okay. So you shouldn't be getting your goddamn news from Facebook in the first place. It's a terrible place to do it. All Facebook should ever do for you is tell you what to Google. That's it. Or DuckDuckGo, whatever search platform you... Ask Jeeves, I think it's still around. I don't know. But like if that's what 9 times out of 10, that's what I do. I don't trust almost any news I see on Facebook because one, the people sharing it are definitely biased. I
Yeah.
know that the people who wrote it are probably biased. And I know that the Facebook algorithm is biased. It's going to give me stuff that I'm going to interact with. So all I do 9 times out of 10 when I see something on Facebook is I just go and search for it myself to find out, oh, here's a better version of that, or here's a more nuanced version of that, or here's something else. You know what I mean? Because that's what you realistically have to do. I think what we're talking about here is confirmation bias for a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely.
In that we see things on Facebook, and if we already believe it, we don't do any extra research. We just accept that that's fact and we move on with our day. However, when we see something we disagree with, suddenly Facebook, suddenly we have to like go and look further into it or talk crap about it and do all these type of things. So with Facebook censoring certain news outlets, all that tells me is I don't get my news from Facebook, and neither should anyone else. Because if you're telling me that they're censoring factual based information, then you're telling me they're unreliable. If they're unreliable, then I don't need them to change. I just don't trust them. I don't need the guy that I go to at a deli or something like that to stop telling me what stock to pick, and he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. I just don't listen to the dude. He's not going to be, and well, to be fair, none of the people on TV should be telling you what stocks to pick either, but he's not like Jim Cramer or somebody like that. He's just some dude with an opinion. And that's all Facebook is too. They have teams that just go out there and they go, hey, how is this going to hurt us? Is this going to hurt our bottom line? Then let's get it the hell out of here. They have. I don't believe that Mark Zuckerberg has strong morals, to be honest with you, when it comes to business. He may in his home life and the way he acts and everything, sure. But I believe at the end of the day, Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, Jack Dorsey, Elon Musk, anybody you want to pick, take any CEO, I'll line them up. I will basically say the same thing for all of them. Their moral as a businessman comes to making money without crossing a certain line. And for them, a lot of them, it's probably murder or something like that, right? But it's certainly not whether or not they're letting you post all the news articles you want to post. They don't give a shit. They want to do it because it makes them money. See everything through the lens of making money, and you'll understand what's happening here. Why did Amazon ban Parler from AWS? Because Google did, and they didn't want to be the one left holding the bag backing Parler. They didn't give a shit about Parler violating their things or whatever, unless they'd already told them and had those conversations stuff. They did it to protect themselves. Google did it to protect themselves. Nobody has morals in this world when it comes to business. I just don't believe it. I don't buy into any of those companies putting out the Black Lives Matter ads or putting out any of this stuff. You're making money. You're just trying to protect yourself and your public image. And that's how you do it now. You do it by being proactive and saying these things that I don't believe. I don't believe you. I don't buy it. You want more money, and this is how you're doing it.
That makes sense. And you touched on something I wanted to ask. And I mean, you kind of already answered it. So maybe you can just go a little bit more in depth about what you think about it. But
sure.
Earlier you had said like, hey, if you don't like it, go to a different thing. And so this is one of the things that bothered me a little bit. And I think the answer is it's the same answer, but people say, okay, well, let's leave Twitter. They go to Parler, and then Amazon and Google kick them off their servers. And it's like, okay, now you've got these two huge entities that are controlling a giant portion of the internet. And you say, oh, you went to a different thing. We don't like what you're doing over there. Now we're going to completely kick you off our servers. It's like, I get it that they have the ability to do that, and it is their right, but it really rubs me the wrong way. It's like it's doing their best to eliminate dissenting ideas from the internet, because you have to have, like, I can't just go down and start my own giant server to entertain all the people that believe like me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I got you.
Yeah.
So
go ahead.
Sorry. With that, I had a conversation on this a little while ago too. What I said then has already come to pass. They were going to find another host, and they have. They're back online. This is going to be great for Parler's business, because here's the thing. Before January 6th, had you even said the word Parler without talking about some Renaissance piece or something like that? You know what I mean? Like, you'd never said it. This has been great press for them. This has been amazing for them. Everybody who now wants what they offer now knows where to go. So now they found another host who doesn't give a shit about what they post. They have it so they can like post whatever they want again, and they're back online, and they're going to be doing better than ever. Because here's what I have seen happening, and I've talked to a few different people who said this: people are leaving Facebook. People don't like what Facebook has been doing, so they're starting to go away. Parler's numbers are going to go up. You're going to see some kind of balance with that type of stuff, and they won't get kicked off of a platform because they're not going to a platform that is not for them. Amazon. And I've seen mixed reviews on this, or mixed opinions on this, or mixed facts, I should say. But Amazon has had problems with Parler in the past prior to them becoming what they became, right? They've gotten complaints from various people about them, and they've tried to write and tell them, hey, you have to kind of have some kind of moderation policy, which is Parler has started to do. They're not completely unmoderated. Almost no one on the internet can be truly unmoderated anymore. But I think when you see somebody like AWS, you see somebody like Google, it's just the problem that I have with that concept. And I get what you're saying. They do have a lot of power. I'm not saying they don't. But at what point does the government get to, or government or anybody really that isn't just consumers, get to tell you, hey, you've been too successful at what you've done. Now you no longer control what you built. We'll take it. We're going to cut your profit. We're going to cut your ability to control your own stuff and everything. And all the money you invested in it doesn't matter anymore. Thank you for your service. We're going to take over from here.
Yeah.
How is that not communism? Isn't that what everybody's afraid of?
I have no response to that because I can't. What you're saying is exactly what I believe. But I just hate that there are people that don't want all the ideas out. It bothers me so much. But there is no, at least from my standpoint, my morals and what I believe, there is no argument against what you're saying because I agree with everything you're saying. It's hard for me to swallow it down that maybe just because my personality, like I want to hear all the perspectives. I want people to be able to speak. I'd rather people be out in the light instead of in the shadows. Like I want to see where are the bad people instead of them isolating themselves into a bubble where they just become more extreme.
Well, and that's what's been really interesting to me to watch all this happen is that, and I've made this comparison a million times. So anybody who's listened to me speak before, I apologize that I go back to it, but it just feels so relevant to me. We spent so many years prior to the internet, or as the internet was coming up and everything too, being worried that the government was eventually going to do 1984, where basically they restrict all information, that we weren't going to be able to see anything. And what we've seen is the exact opposite. There's so much information. We don't have the time or the bandwidth to sift through it all. So what are we doing? We're creating these echo chambers. A lot of people are not leaving Facebook because they have problems with Facebook did. They're leaving because of who Facebook did it to. If Facebook had done it to, say, President Obama, former President Obama, there's people on there who'd be like, yeah, Facebook, go ahead, get that out of here. They would have been fine with that. So that's where you're exposing our own biases. We're not bad. And I don't think you're one of these people, by the way. I think that you're probably closer to me where you try to see things. Doesn't really matter who it happens to. It's more what you did, right? Mm-hmm. But what we're seeing is that we're creating our own echo chambers, and businesses will pop up to serve that. They already have started, and now you're going to start to see Parler is going to be one of the first. They may fail because they may just not be that good of a business. It's not because people don't want what they offer. It's just because you might suck at it. Just because you have a great idea doesn't mean you're good at it. Hopefully, if they're bad at it, somebody else will buy them up and they can run it like a real corporation. There's a reason they weren't successful before all this stuff went down, really. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, I agree with you that it doesn't feel good to realize how much power Amazon, Google, and all these companies have. But the way that we create a better balance, in my opinion, is the way that capitalism is supposed to. The way that you're supposed to create a competitor. Why did Apple come up after Microsoft's dominance? Because people started buying their products, because people wanted what they had to offer, because they innovated, because they built something good. That's how you create competition, is you come out with somebody like if there's enough of a a consumer base for what Parler or other platforms offer, where they say, Facebook, you're moderating too much, you're controlling us too much, we don't want that. Then it will come up. People will find a way to make money for it. Why is there a black market for drugs and everything else? Because people want it. Because people are willing to put their dollars behind it. And that's, I think, what you're going to start to see happening. Again, this is very anecdotal when I say this part, and I've said it a second ago. I've seen people leaving Facebook. Well, those people either are giving up social media completely, which means social media doesn't matter anymore, or they're going to find another one.
Yeah. And that, I guess this kind of goes to what you're saying. If it's good, people will go to it. I've tried to leave Facebook to the extent that, not to a serious extent where I've deleted anything because I've got that addiction issue going on and I'm trying to still do something. But I've looked around and I've tried other services and they're just not very good.
They're not.
And, like I've been trying to use Rumble recently, and like I've been on back and forth with their support team. And there's like a 4-week delay on getting one of my videos monetized. And so like, if I want to talk about the Derek Chauvin case, which I did about a week ago, and I try to post stuff up on Rumble, it's not going to be available for like 4 weeks. And like, you can't get anything in the moment. And then there's other sources as well that I've been trying to use, and it's just not as good. And I've been on Parler for a while, but it's not streamlined with other stuff. So For example, you have like Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. It's like you can have one account where you post it and it goes to all three. It's like just makes life so much easier. So it's so hard to leave those things to say, okay, I'm going to join these 5 other things. And then when I want to post something, I need to go to every single one. It's like, it's draining. So it just makes it really hard. So there's a long way to go. And if they don't have the money to match what these other places are doing, it's hard for them to get there. But I do completely agree with what you're saying. Do you think, go ahead.
Sorry, I just had one more example that I wanted to do that's complete opposite. It's liberals on this time, well, liberal leaning people for the most part anyways, pulling the same nonsense, right? Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A, they found some old video, or I don't know how old the video was or whatever, of the owner saying, hey, I support marriage being between a man and a woman. And then, so of course, a lot of the LGBTQ community was very upset by that. The people who support them were upset by that and everything. And what did they do? Did they stop going to Chick-fil-A? No. They didn't stop going to Chick-fil-A. They went to Chick-fil-A, protested. The guy came out and said, sorry. And everybody went back to buying Chick-fil-A. Do we think he changed his mind? No. The dude is still doing everything he was doing 2 weeks before that or whatever else is happening. It's the same thing we're talking about here with not wanting to leave Facebook and all these other things. We just want our businesses to be what we want them to be. You want to believe Chick-fil-A is so delicious that you refuse to stop eating those sandwiches. You want to believe that the guy no longer doesn't believe in gay marriage. He absolutely still believes that. He's absolutely still giving his money to it. Like, you're lying to yourself to make yourself feel better just so you can eat a damn chicken sandwich. Why do I think that you're going to feel, why do I care about your opinion? Not you, again, you, the royal you, keep clarifying that, of Facebook. You've shown me no ability to stand on your grounds on a chicken sandwich. So you're certainly not going to do it on a social media platform where all your friends and family and everybody else are. If people really want to see change, it takes hard work. It takes boycotts. One of the things that I remember reading relatively recently, and I had never really conceptualized it this way, was the boycotts that the Martin Luther King Jr. did in Alabama for the buses. That went on for like a year. It wasn't a few weeks that he had all the black people in those towns not riding buses. It was like a year. It significantly inconvenienced their life. They had no way to get around. They were like walking miles to work and all this type of stuff. We won't do that for almost anything. We have, as a generation, we are super, super soft when it comes to inconveniences. And so what we try to do is berate businesses into changing either what they believe or just saying something publicly so we can feel better about not being inconvenienced. And what you're talking about goes to that. Yeah, you're probably not going to find some platform out there that's as perfectly built as Facebook was, because I don't know how early you were on Facebook, but Facebook was pretty rough back in the day too. It takes time to build something like that. It takes time, it takes money, it takes resources. And if you really feel strongly enough about these type of issues, that's what you have to go through. You have to stop eating that chicken sandwich. You have to stop being able to post in 2 seconds flat. It might take 4 weeks, and I'm not suggesting you do that. I would never freaking do that. I don't care enough to. But I'm just saying these are the struggles you have to go through, and compared to history, you know what I mean, where you might get your leg chopped off for standing up and saying something out of turn to the king. I think we're doing okay. We just have to balance all that out. You know, it's gonna suck. It's not supposed to be fun. That's exactly why they run their business that way.
Well, I went through that phase in high school when I was all over my MySpace. You know, I thought it was cool. I had my Metallica in the background of my page with lightning, orange lightning coming down, and my top 8 friends and stuff. And I was like, oh, it's cool. It shows who I am. And then Facebook was coming around, and I was like, people started doing Facebook, and I was just discouraging it. It's like, oh, it's so stupid. It's so stupid. It doesn't even show your personality. It's so dumb. It's just a message board.
Yep.
And I was so negative against it. And then eventually a girl that I liked went on there, and I'm like, I want to see what she's doing. So then I finally made a Facebook, and then I just slowly, MySpace just disappeared. So it's kind of like a natural process, I suppose. Do you think there's any difference between, so we kind of covered what is right or wrong in your opinion, but do you think that there is a political leaning as far as what these social media companies are deciding to ban and what violates their rules? I mean, I can give a couple of examples if you want, but I'm curious of what your opinion, if you do think it's actually just focused on money, or if there is a political thing, or maybe the money is the driving factor, and so they claim to have a political leaning. What do you think?
I think the money is the driving factor, and because of the money and where it leads them, they end up with a political leaning. So and this is a comparison I often make as well, is that people talk about the liberal media bias, right? And I 100% agree. I'm not denying that. I'm not fighting that. But then we look, oh, why is there a liberal media bias? Oh, because they want to control. No, again, we live in a capitalist society. Always follow the dollar. That's my North Star. It's always about money.
Mm-hmm.
Who do they make the news for? They make the news for the major markets. Well, are the major markets generally liberal? Well, yes. So of course they're going to be a liberal media bias because they want those people to watch them. They want New York to watch. They want LA to watch. They want all these major cities to watch, which generally speaking are liberal. So that's why you have a liberal media bias. I believe the same thing about Facebook because here's the thing. Facebook, generally speaking, because there are instances of them directing like bans and stuff like that, whatever, but a lot of times they only ban what's reported. They look at people and they say it has to be reported a certain number of times, whatever. That's how I know liberal people who've gotten banned because somebody reported them, right? So it comes from who's reporting it and who are reporting more people. Liberal people are reporting conservative-leaning news sources, conservative-leaning people, and everything like that. And Facebook's getting more of those cases to review. Now, am I saying that Facebook is on the up and up on who they ban outside of that? No. But what I am saying is it's all about money. It's about the system they've created. It's about how they go through it and everything like that. And it comes back down to, in general, in a lot of in a lot of places in America, it is more cost effective to cater to liberal opinions. That's just the reality it seems to be for me. And so if you make that, if that is the clear path to money, again, I don't believe companies have enough morals to say they're not, unless it's a strategy for them to do so. Why is Fox News Republican? Is it because I forget the guy's name, who Roger something, I think his name is, the guy who created Fox News. Is it because he's super Republican? Possibly, probably helped align with this thing, but no, he saw a market opportunity and he ran with it. He's like, I need to make the news for these people because they're not getting their news out there. And he's right. That's why Fox News is the dominant conservative voice. Now, others have popped up now, OAN, Blaze, and things like that, I think. But it's all the same thing that Facebook is doing as well. It is right now in America's history, it is more profitable, from my opinion, to be publicly liberal.
Yeah.
Do I think that Mark Zuckerberg really gives a shit? I don't. He's not out there running campaigns for people. He's not. If he cared, this is what he does. He has the money to do it. He's not doing it because he doesn't care. If it doesn't have Facebook and it doesn't bring him another billion behind his name, he doesn't give a shit about it. He's not out there trying to save the world. Ashton Kutcher is doing more to save the world than Mark Zuckerberg is. And that's a 100% fact. Shout out to Ashton Kutcher for doing all that human trafficking work, man. That's still really crazy that that's who's doing it, but here we are.
What you just said just kind of, not to take us back, but just
sure.
Just kind of reminded me of something like with the Facebook fact checks. So I'm not sure when. I think relatively recently. I can't remember exactly when they started doing this, but they hired companies to start doing fact checks, and I've been reading through some of their fact checks, and like I guess if we just follow that line of the money, then they could have that reason for why they're fact checking the way that they're doing. But have you ever seen that meme where it's like, the British are coming, fact check, false. Not all the British are coming. If fact checking had existed in the past. It's like,
I had not seen that. That's hilarious though.
So like I saw that and I just kind of like stepped back and I was comparing it to some of the other fact checks that I was reading. And it's like, you even read the fact check article and 90% of what they're saying shows that the thing is true, but they're like, because of this very small factor, they're saying, oh, this is partly false because of this little thing. But realistically, if you just look at the surface of the thing, it's like, yeah, that's a true statement, but they're finding a reason to say fact check false. And Facebook has hired these people as the arbiters of truth. And so it's a bit annoying, but I guess it can go back to your idea of following the money.
Well, in that one, I actually don't think that's so much money, so much as it is, I guess it still ties back to money some way, but it's about speed. These people aren't trying to do deep dives. I have 1 million fact checks on my desk right now. I don't give a crap how right I get this. I just need to not get it completely wrong. And so if I put something like partially true, it's close enough. And I think that's where we lead to. It's just, there is too much going on now. Facebook is too big at this point to fact check every single post. And so again, they try to use user input from reports and things like that, whatever. And so when they are doing fact checks, a lot of times they're skimming. They are skimming at best of what that they're not diving down into it and then looking at the references that article is making and going through, like they don't have time. They simply can't do that. And so I'm not saying it's a perfect system. I'm not saying it's even a good system, to be honest with you. I think it's one of those things that is, it just depends on where you land on it. Like, on that specific article. It could take an article that's about a kid's book, let's say, and I don't mean the Dr. Seuss situation, but like a real, just like kid's book that's completely innocuous or whatever. And they go, false or whatever, just because of some flag, a word or whatever it did just came out wrong or whatever, right? But it's just about speed. There's just too much. I don't care what system you have in place or the amount of content that's on Facebook constantly being posted or on Twitter or any of these platforms. You're not going to have any system that's going to be able to get it right all the time. You're going to have people who try to incentivize speed. They're trying to turn them over. And I think, again, what I have seen is that there is a bias for major news sources for fact checkers. CNN, MSNBC, Fox News to a lesser extent, and all these, they look for the big names. If you're not one of the big names, suddenly they're probably going to have more of a chance to be partially true. And the interesting thing that I think is really going to come in our lifetime is the rise of all these smaller media sources. And that's very dangerous, but it's also very intriguing. And it's dangerous because who's fact checking them? We can't trust only the big corporations. We've proven that doesn't work. So it's dangerous because now, just because they're not coming from a major source, we are more inclined to trust it again because of confirmation bias. Yeah. But it's really intriguing because now it's a lot harder to control stories. It's a lot harder to spin stories because there's so many different ways for people to get out there and get that information. Because one of the things I always tell about people, because he's one of the most famous examples of this type of stuff, is Alex Jones is sometimes right. And that terrifies people because you have to sift through everything he says, which the one thing I'll always stand on to call Alex Jones a piece of shit is, berating the parents of the Sandy Hook massacre, going to and telling those people that they were actors and their kids didn't really die and everything like that. Like, if you're a grieving parent and some fat dipshit from the internet is coming and telling you that your kid didn't die and you're like having funerals and everything like that, like, dude, I gotta be honest, I'd probably kill that dude. I probably would have lost my mind and gone and like done something very terrible and ruined my life too, right? But anyways, the point is that Alex Jones is sometimes right, and so will these small producers. They're going to be wrong sometimes, they're going to be right sometimes, which is what all news sources are. So I think it's really interesting to see where we're going to go in the future with the smaller sources and how they control things. And Facebook is not equipped for it. Twitter is not equipped for it. They trust big sources more than they do the little sources. And so they're going to start flagging a lot of these little sources as false, and they're not going to be false. And it's going to leave them looking like idiots. And I'm really interested to see how that goes.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I mean, I've heard a lot of crazy stuff from Alex Jones, but I've also heard a lot of things that he was completely right about that people said he was crazy for saying. So that's kind of one of like the fears that I have is when you have these entities throwing people out and forcing them into the corner. You never know like what they're saying that might be right. Like, we should take everything with a grain of salt, but at the same time, like we need to consider everything that people are saying. And I hate the idea of censorship, but I really don't have any good arguments to go against anything that you've said, because the other half of my brain is agreeing with everything you're saying. So it's frustrating for me.
I find that for me, and again, this is just a way to quickly evaluate things that don't feel right but sound true are usually pretty close to the truth, because we want things that comfort us. We want like, for not me, because I'm not smart enough, but somebody to come on here and go, here's your perfect solution. You're like, yes, that covers all my bases. But that's not what the truth usually is. It's something you go, I hate it. It's not great. But yeah, that's probably the best we're going to do for right now. It's like that gross cough syrup we take when we're sick, right? Like, yeah, you can get the cherry flavored one, but the shit doesn't work. It doesn't do anything for you. You got to get that one that tastes like you're peeling paint off your car, and then you'll feel better. You know what I mean? It's gross, but it's the way you get things done. And I think that for me, that's what it is, because I don't like it either. I don't like the power that Amazon, Google, Facebook, and all these companies potentially have. But I see no alternative that doesn't give away the rights that we're talking about. That doesn't give away the rights of private businesses or the rights of free speech or all these different types of things. And like you said, I am not for government regulation in a lot of places where I don't believe it's necessary. And I definitely don't believe it's necessary social media. Because again, if our country collapses because of social media, so freaking be it. We don't deserve to exist. If Facebook posts are taking us down, we're out. Like, we can't survive then. What are we talking about? Like, we've been through wars, we've been through civil rights movements, we've been through a civil war, but Facebook is what takes us out. No, we don't deserve it. That's cool. Our run, that's our end. Then that's so be it. Like, I can't defend a country that can't protect itself from some school soccer mom saying some dumb shit on the internet. Like, I got nothing for you.
In 1,000 years, someone finds a book and they discover, the end of this seemingly great society was a thing called Facebook or the Facebook. I don't know.
Yeah. If that's what does it, so be it, man. We had a good run. Let's go. I heard Fiji's nice. Let's do that.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I assume that you got the same opinion on, Amazon recently kind of blocking some books and, also the Dr. Seuss thing you briefly mentioned. It's the publisher decides not to publish it based on whether their reasons are justified or not. It's, I guess, suppose their view on what they want to block, and then Amazon blocking one of the number one sellers, When Harry Became Sally. It's a kind of a thing that talks about transgender uh,
No,
people
I'll
and
say on
the
that one, I
simplicity
don't
behind it.
necessarily agree.
What do you?
I would say I
How
don't
is that
necessarily
one
agree
different?
on uh, because Amazon's blocking it on their platform, but I don't know. That one again, that one rubs me a little bit the wrong way. Just sell the damn book. What are you doing? Like, I don't. But again, you're right. I need to be consistent on that one and say that Amazon has the right to do it, and they do. It just feels a little strange that you're getting to that level of, because Amazon is a platform to sell things. They are not a social media platform or things like that, right? So
Mhm.
them restricting who is being sold on their platform for something that doesn't violate their terms and conditions, which to the best of my knowledge just doesn't violate their terms and conditions. I do think that that's a little bit of a slipperier slope. But you're right. If I looked into it, I probably would arrive back at my original decision of like, no, they have the right to do what they do with their platform. But
Yeah.
I hadn't heard about that one yet until you just mentioned it. And on the surface, it sounds wrong to me. But you're probably right.
I mean, yeah, it does sound. It definitely sounds wrong to me. But I mean, based on all the arguments you made, I can't make any justification for why it's wrong, because like you make a very good argument for their right to do what they want to do with their platform. And even though I think it's completely wrong that they're going to take this book that gives statistical evidence and facts about a situation that I think is a serious situation that deserves to be discussed, then they're going to throw it out and say, no, you're not even allowed to see that. It's like, well, someone can make a new platform to sell a book. It's like, okay, technically, yes, that's true, but it just sucks that's the situation that we're in.
Yeah, like I said, I don't know the particulars of that, so I shouldn't run my mouth about it. But on the surface, I'm not a fan. Let's just say that.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.